Welcome to today's video, you guys. I'm so excited to do today's video. This video is going to be centered around if you have combo skin, if you have oily skin and you want to live through the summer months without sweating your foundation off. You guys, I have literally tested hundreds of foundations in my time, but my skin changed to more combo oily skin as I went from like 37 to 38, and I was having to figure out which foundations were now working on my changed skin, where it used to be really dry skin and I was always looking for like luminous foundations, thinner weight foundations. And I live in Florida, which is number 2 in the state in the US with the most humidity. Surprisingly enough, Alaska is number 1, but their temps don't usually reach more than 70 degrees Fahrenheit. There is no escaping the humidity here. So I picked up some of the mattest, more full coverage foundations that claim to be oil controlling and have tested them for you guys. And not just that, I have also done wear tests. I will be inserting clips of when they were put on in natural light and about the 4 to 5 hour mark, in some cases a little bit longer, just depending upon how my day was, so you guys can see how they held up. I narrowed this to my top 10. I was at 15, and then I started rewatching some of the takes of the wear test and decided no, it needed to be these top 10. And by far, you guys, the drugstore category won this out. But I do have drugstore, I have mid-range price point, and I do have luxury foundations. So without further ado, you guys, let's hop into the top 10 best mattifying foundations in this awful Florida humidity for combo skin. I will be linking these in the description box, you guys, including the shade that I was wearing. I am not putting these in a ranking order. I just want to put these together for you guys based on category, which is drugstore versus mid-range price point versus more expensive kind of luxury brand. But I will mention there are 2 in here that absolutely take the top 2 spots, and they happen to be the ones that are in the mid-range price point. They were by far, above and beyond, the best working on my skin in this extremely wet climate. So let's start off in no particular order of price point. I'm just going to talk about the drugstore category first. The one that I want to talk about first is the NYX Can't Stop Won't Stop. This is the full coverage foundation. It's supposed to be up to 24-hour matte finish wear. I think mine is in the shade range light, but then the shade is like F05 if I'm not mistaken. So this one has a 12-month shelf life. This particular bottle is 1 fluid ounce, and this is made in the United States. This I bought searching for a more mattifying full coverage foundation. This is a pretty full coverage foundation. This one is like a cross between a liquidy formula and something that's a little bit of a thicker consistency, I would say, but it blends perfectly. It's not a self-setting product like some of these other ones are, where they self-set very fast. This one gives you time to blend it in. It's a thinner formula, thinner feeling when it goes on, but it's gorgeous. It's pretty inexpensive. It does give a beautiful matte finish. This was one of the better wear tests that I did, because it held up a little bit longer than maybe some of the other ones. I think this is one that should not go unlooked for us combo oily skin girlies in this humidity, or even in just hotter temperatures where we're sweating a lot, because this is a really good foundation that I hear literally no one talking about. So picked this up just looking for mattifying foundations on Ulta's website, and so glad I did, because this is very smoothing on the skin, and it did its freaking job. It did a really good job locking down the foundation through that wear test. All right, next up, you guys, I want to talk about the Revlon Color Stay Full Cover Foundation. This one is supposed to be a matte finish that lasts up to 24 hours. I have mine in the shade 110 Ivory. I think this is even like a little bit on the lighter side for what I like in terms of colors of my foundations. This one has a 24-month shelf life. This was made in the USA, and this does have a standard 1 fluid ounce. This one I had in my collection already and knew that I was going to put this one in today's video because this is almost too matte. This is not for those who are looking for a light matte, soft matte, luminous matte. This is a matte foundation. Those of you guys who live in a humid climate and have combo skin, I would definitely recommend you checking this out. This is a little bit of a thicker consistency, and it's kind of a self-setting product. It's definitely like a little bit more whipped in texture than some of the other ones, even though it feels really lightweight. It's not like a runny formula. And because it's a little whipped, it does self-set. a little bit quicker than some of the other ones. It almost dries down to a powdery finish. It's great for oily skin, maybe even a little bit intense for combo skin. Definitely wouldn't recommend this to you guys if you had normal skin. It's definitely a drier foundation, but it's super affordable. It still makes my skin look super smooth, and the longevity is there, and I highly recommend this one. Let's move into Maybelline. So I bought this one to test in today's video. I have loved the dewy and smooth version, I think is what it was. This one is the matte and poreless. This is supposed to be up to 12 hours wear. It's made for normal to oily skin. I have mine in the shade 112 Natural Ivory. I believe this one is made in Canada, and this has a 1 fluid ounce. So the Maybelline Matte and Poreless is not as intense of a matte coverage as some of the other ones that we're going to talk about today, but it's a decent contender. It's pretty good if you're looking for something that's more light to buildable medium coverage that gives you like maybe a solid 7 hours of wear. This one tends to, when it fades, it doesn't reset the way some of these other ones do. Like after you start sweating profusely, some of them will actually reset instead of just kind of like fade off evenly. This one has a tendency to fade off a little bit evenly, but it's not as full coverage as some of the other ones. And so that's part of it as well. It's still a good contender for being a more mattifying coverage, but I think it is made more for normal to combo skin. I don't think this was the best performing on me. Again, pretty affordable. This is the kind that you have to buy a pump for, or it just kind of pours out. I have never bought pumps for these. I could, but I don't mind just pouring it onto the back of my hand. This one is a really, really runny consistency, which makes it like a super lightweight formula. This is one of the easier ones to blend into the skin, and it takes a little bit to dry down because it's a little bit of a more liquidy formula, more emollient if you will, not as like whipped as the Revlon for sure, and definitely takes a little bit longer to dry down than the NYX. Let's move on to another Maybelline. This one is the Superstay. I bought this one again from Ulta looking for more full coverage, more mattifying foundations. This one's the active wear. This is supposed to give you up to 30 hours wear. This one is in the shade 120 Classic Ivory. This one is made in the USA. I believe it's a 12-month shelf life on it, and this one again is 1 fluid ounce. This one does have a pump with it. This one is amazing. If it were between the Maybelline Fit Me and this one, the activewear takes the cake. This one is really made, I believe, for combo to oily skin, and it's gorgeous on the skin. It makes my skin super duper smooth. This one has, again, like a cross between kind of runny, kind of whipped texture, or reminds me a lot of the NYX, but it's very emollient. It does not dry down very fast. This one is super beautiful, and this one highly surprised me because I didn't even know that this existed. Because it's activewear, I'm assuming they made it so that like people who are playing sports or who are outside can wear this and it can give a really long lasting finish. This was just so good on my wear test. I instantly fell in love with the performance of this, and I'd never even heard of it before. This again is a high recommendation. Definitely this if you have oily skin or you are outside and you want to lock it down. The last one that I'm personally considering the drugstore category is one that's really, really good, and maybe like third place in all of the ones and how they perform and how they lock down. This is the Catrice HD Liquid Cover Foundation. It's mattifying, water and sweat proof with niacinamide. Some of you don't like niacinamide. I happen to like it. I do put it on in the morning to help control some of my oils. It's supposed to last up to 24 hours. This one is made in Italy. It has a 12-month shelf life, and this is 1.01 fluid ounces. This is the kind that has a dropper. So this feels more like a serum foundation. It's super duper lightweight, but this is mattifying, and it is pretty darn full coverage like right away. I would say like the most liquidy by comparison to its overall matte finish and its overall full coverageness. But I love the way that this applies. I love how smooth it looks on my skin. I love how easy it is to blend in, how it looks a little bit luminous until it like fully dries down, but it really gives you that long-lasting mattifying coverage. This one, again, super great wear test. This one is a little bit more of a popular product. Like I knew this existed, but I had decluttered it some time ago when I had dry skin, and I repurchased it for this video because I thought, you know what? why haven't I repurchased this? I know that my skin is more combo now. I need to get this back in my life. This is something that's better suited to me now. Totally didn't disappoint, you guys. Again, I think this is probably third in terms of like how it performed, and of the 3 that reset. So once I like sweat during the day, I came back inside to like the AC and the foundation like resets itself. So it's like a self-refreshing, self-setting foundation kind of, even though it's like a serum like formula. And by the way, I have mine in the shade 010, which is light beige. This one is a little bit too deep for me, but I can get away with it, and or I don't mind it. Anyway, I think this is top 3. All right, now we are in the mid-range price point. Let me tell you the number 2 spot. This goes to the Juvia's Place I Am Magic Foundation. This is supposed to be a velvety matte foundation. It's full coverage, 24-month shelf life, made in Italy, and this has a 1 fluid ounce. It comes in a squeezy tube. This is a little bit more of a whipped texture. It's a little bit of a stiffer formula. This definitely feels more like thick and whipped. It almost worried me when I first tried this on that it was gonna be too dry on my face. I thought, oh my gosh, this is too full coverage. What have I done? And it's gonna be a little bit too dry. I think the velvety matte is perfect. They must have something in here that really does help with its smoothness. It's like a powder finish. So I feel like it not only like looks super smooth on my skin, but it like fills in my pores. And the moment I start sweating, it's almost like this foundation looks better as the day goes on. I really think they had combo oily skinned individuals in mind when they formulated this. Again, I thought this was going to be too much, and this took the number 2 spot. I highly recommend this also. The number 1 spot I will reserve until the end just to give you guys a little bit of suspense, and it is the one that I am wearing today. Let me go over the high-end / luxury ones that I tested. A lot of these got bumped out. I tested a bunch more than just these ones, and a lot of them, based on the wear test, they didn't make the cut. These 3 made the cut. This is kind of an honorable mention. This goes to Chanel. It's the Ultra Laiton Ultra Wear All Day Comfort Flawless Finish Foundation. This isn't like a super strong mattifying foundation. This was made in France. It has a 1 fluid ounce and it has a 12-month shelf life. This one is in the shade B10. This one isn't like a super full coverage foundation, but it's definitely pretty mattifying. This one again is not overly liquidy, but it is very thin, very blendable when it goes on. But it's more of a medium, buildable to full coverage. I even feel like you could kind of just apply this in such a small amount that it's more light coverage when it goes on. But the all-day wear is there. I did not buy this for the intention of this one being a part of this video at all. I bought this to try this, but this one had to go in this video because the wear test was just so good. And it was on a day where we were walking downtown and I was sweating profusely. I mean, when you're in the humidity, you're just wet anyway. You may not even be sweating. It just may be moisture. And so when I came back, I was like, whoa, this did a lot better than I thought it was going to. For me being combo and it being such a humid day, like the time that I tested this for this particular video, it's more maybe light to buildable coverage, and it's not the most mattifying, but it is gorgeous. It's a little bit longer lasting. It's beautiful. And every other foundation that I've been talking about, I have not detected any scent until Chanel. Chanel has the normal, I think, Chanel No. 5 smell. None of these other ones have any additional fragrance, or at least that I detect. All right, the next one up, you guys, is one you've heard of, I'm sure. This is the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place. I believe this is 1 fluid ounce. I know it has a 24-month shelf life, and then this is made in Canada. The shade I have is 1N0 Porcelain. And I think this is a pretty decent shade match for me. I've had the Estee Lauder Double Wear in my collection before, but I repurchased it for this video. Just like the Catrice, and then just like the No. 1 spot. I have tested these in the past, but they work so much better for combo oily skin. This is the kind that doesn't have the pump unless you buy it. I like the Estee Lauder Double Wear because it's very smoothing on the skin, and the way that it fades off is really, really pretty. In the wear test for this one, I am sweating like immensely. It may have been the worst that I was sweating in testing all of these foundations. But another reason that I love this is because it's such a lightweight formula and it blends like super beautifully while feels kind of cooling on the skin, and it's immediately medium to full coverage. But this is one that resets itself, I guess. You can sweat with this, but then when you again like get back into the AC and you cool down, it looks like nothing even ever happened. And that's what I mean by like it's resets. And I feel like that's very beautiful. And there's something super luxurious about the way that this wears off too. But again, the refreshingness about this foundation just makes it fabulous. This one does have like a little bit of a fragrance. I don't know if there's like anything added in here, but it's Estee Lauder, so I imagine it is, but it's so light. I don't know that it's like perfume necessarily. That's at least how it kind of smells to me. Anyway, if you're into more luxury or high-end foundations, this is definitely a good one. And I feel like a lot of people could use this. I feel like this is even something I loved when I had dry skin. Let's move into the last one in the luxury category. This is the All Hours foundation from YSL. It's a luminous matte foundation. It's supposed to be up to 24-hour full coverage and weightless feel. This one has an SPF of 30, where none of the other ones like so far have had an SPF in them. This one comes in the shade LN1. This has a 12-month shelf life. It's made in France and it has a 0.84 fluid ounces. I love me a luminous matte foundation. This one's on the thinner side, so it's runny, so it's super smooth and easy to blend into the skin. I think this is more like medium coverage when it starts, but it's buildable to full coverage. The tendency that this has to be a little bit more drying when it dries down completely is different than the other ones that I've been showing you. Even in my cutaway, you guys, you will see that I'm saying like maybe it's even a little bit dry. So if you have really oily skin and you are worried about the day that you're gonna have because you know you're gonna be out, this YSL foundation is great. I think that this has a tendency to like look a little bit on the yellow side. If I didn't mention it, it's LN1, but I think this is still kind of a little bit of a warm tone on me, even though it's LN1, which I think is supposed to be neutral. I don't feel like this one sinks into the skin as well as some of the other ones do. Some of them look very blurring on the skin. Some of them fill in my pores. I feel like this one has a tendency, just a little bit, to sit kind of on top of the skin. But again, really good product if you know that you're gonna have a really sweaty day. You're gonna be outside. You want something that's gonna last and not fade off 5 minutes later, and you're not worried about something that's gonna maybe be a little bit heavier. The YSL is fabulous. But the YSL again does have a fragrance to it. I would say honestly only the Chanel and the YSL are the two that I notice having fragrance. But in luxury foundations, I don't think that's uncommon. All right, so in the first place, and I call it mid-range price point because it's in comparison to the luxury versus the drugstore that I've been showing you, and this is the one that I am wearing today. This is the Pure 4-in-1 Love Your Selfie Long Wear Foundation and Concealer. I didn't wear it as concealer today because it is super full coverage, but I could have, because this one is the kind that not only comes with a pump, but it also twists off and comes with a doe foot applicator, which I absolutely love about this product, because I think that if you didn't pack a concealer and you just brought this, it'd be great to just dab it under the eyes and go, or you can just use this doe foot applicator to apply the whole thing to the cheeks. I have mine in the shade LN6. This is 1 fluid ounce. This is made in Korea and it has a 12-month shelf life. This is overall the best performing. It's beautiful on the skin. It is the longest lasting. It self-refreshes. It is super mattifying. It is immensely full coverage. It's blurring and beautiful on the skin. I don't know if I said that already, but this took the #1 spot hand over hand. This was so beautiful in every category. This one is a self-setting product for sure. It's runny, it's very emollient, it feels very lightweight, but it self-sets fast. So when I put this on, like I swipe it on, it feels thicker, even though this is kind of a runnier formula. It feels a little bit thicker, kind of laying it on like that, and it will self-set. It's the most self-setting, yet it never ever dries too fast that I can't blend it in. And this is one of those products that I blend like a tiny bit. Like when I take a brush, I kind of like just go like this and all of a sudden it looks like it's done its job for me. Like I barely put any work into blending this in It's hand over hand. The easiest, most beautiful, most long lasting without the breakdown of some of these other ones. I mean, at the end of the night, I still looked like I had full glam on. That's how good I think this particular product is. And this is one that I had in my collection a long time ago. When I wanted to start looking for the foundations that I thought were going to be really good in this weather so I could do this video, I thought of this one. And it became my favorite, and I didn't expect that it was. You guys, that was the top 10 foundations that I have found that I work best in this climate, that are more mattifying and long wearing. However, there are some tips that I wanted to give you guys. Things that I have found that help lock down my makeup even more. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this. One of the things that I find really helps is the tools that I'm using. So I can get a more mattifying finish depending upon what tool I'm using. So one of the more mattifying applicators that I have found that I hear no one talk about are from Real Techniques. These are the natural matte finish. The #1 mattifying sponge is what they say up here. So it's a Miracle Air Blend Duo. So these in a duo, I think they retail for somewhere like $10 to $12, I think is what I got them for. And they are at like CVS, Walgreens, or like everywhere. Ulta sells them. Evenly blends and mattifies for natural looking coverage without the shine. So wet before first use dry to apply makeup products. I literally go in dry with these all the time. Nobody talks about these that I see that has oily skin in terms of how do you make your makeup last? Outside of like, I just use setting spray or something along those lines. So Airlight Foam, let me pull out one that I've already used. Let me show you like how spongy they are. They would soak up like anything. They are the softest thing. They're the lightest thing ever. These are fabulous for applying a more mattifying coverage. They really soak up the product really, really well. Anyway, they're not that expensive. As you know, Real Techniques is, you know, kind of more on the affordable side as it pertains to like, I think, good quality sponges. I want to talk about a runner up though. This is just one that I had sitting here, so it's really dirty. This is the e.l.f. Total Face Sponge, which I also find does a really good job in mattifying a lot of my coverages. Those are the only two sponges I have found that do a really, really good job in kind of like lighter weight and soaking up the product and are meant to be a little bit more mattifying, but definitely high recommendation was this Real Techniques. The next thing that I want to talk about is what I put on top of the foundation to really lock it down. Now, not a lot of people talk about this, although I did mention this in my e.l.f. Soft Glam Foundation try-on video, that what I do a lot of times with foundations is I will use a powder foundation to set my foundation. And that might seem counterintuitive because powder foundations, I believe, were made to be standalone products that you could just use them in place of a liquid. But I find they help my foundation last so much longer. I have tried a ton, and I still have a ton in my drawer, but there are 3 that absolutely stand out to me that are my huge recommendations. So 2 from the drugstore. e.l.f. the Camo Powder Foundation. This is a 6-month shelf life. This one's made in China, and I have mine in the shade Fair 150C. I love this for setting. It's such a good powder foundation overall. It never is dry. It gives good coverage. I love it under the eyes. I never have issue with it under the eyes. Huge recommendation and pretty affordable. The next one I want to talk about is from Moira. This is the Complete Wear Powder Foundation. I have mine in the shade 125N. This one has a 12-month shelf life, and then this one is made in the USA. This is another really good powder that is not too drying on the skin. These feel like buttery soft formulas that are like full coverage powder foundations that never feel dry or heavy. They really just lock the foundation down. In the higher end category, I love this. This is the powder foundation from One Size. It's the Turn Up the Base Versatile Powder Foundation. This is in the shade Fair 3N. This has a 12-month shelf life, and this one is made in Italy. I kind of like hard band it because I dip my sponge into it a lot to set my face. But you know, One Size is usually really good product for combo oily skinned folks, because I think Patrick has like oily skin as well, and so a lot of his stuff is catered to that, and I freaking love it. I even prefer this over the One Size loose powder because this locks down my makeup so much better. I love this. But I do have a recommendation here for loose powder for you guys that I find is the most mattifying loose powder I have ever tried. Like hands down. And also the most airbrushing, the most pore filling, beautiful gorgeousness. This is also from the drugstore, but I think you can get this online. This is not made here in the US. This is a UK brand. This is from W7. This is their matte dreamer powder. This one is in classy cameo, which if I'm correct in my thinking, I want to say it doesn't come in very many shades, and this might be the only one. I have these at my local CVS, and I picked this up because this is a brand that dupes a lot of other brands. This has a 12-month shelf life. This is made in PRC. Anyway, this is an absolutely fabulous setting powder. It is my #1 most mattifying setting powder. And I thought, you know, some of the other ones that I've purchased recently would do a better job, but they don't for me for whatever reason. I even thought like the Laura Mercier that had talc in it, which was the older version, which would do really well. I even thought the Makeup Forever one, the one that just released that I think was reformulated, would do better. No. This is my #1 loose setting powder that is super matte. I really hope this was helpful for you guys. In addition to my extra tips that I had for you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, I'd love to hear some of your recommendations in the comments below, or if you're interested in checking some of these out, any feedback at all. I love hearing from you guys in the comments. If you guys aren't currently subscribed, I'd love to see you subscribe. I'm out of here, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Bye guys.